Welcome back to the stream. Make sure everything's running properly here. One of my cameras did die, but hopefully you can all hear and see me. I'm not too sure how far we're going to get today, but we are going to make some progress, that's for sure. Constantly ordering parts as I look at this thing, so we'll see how far we can get. Hopefully everyone's having a good weekend. Okay. I'm going to just put this down to the floor here for a moment because we are going to be lubricating the rails and then we will start installing the rails on there. Hey Pixel, welcome. We're going to attach the Y rails today to the frame. We're going to hopefully attach the feet. I have printed out the Y carriages as well. However, I'm not too sure how far we'll get on those just because I have some mods that I'm going to be doing, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So we'll see how that progresses, but thanks everyone for tuning into the stream. Hey, welcome. Okay, so first thing we need to do here is I need to install the carriages on my linear rails, but before that, we need to lube these rails. These carriages never came attached, random Amazon linear rails, so we have to attach them to the actual linear rail itself. And before we do that, we are going to lubricate them. And normally how I do this is I'll just take a zip tie and I will jam super lube into the actual carriage. So I normally will take these carriages off anyways. And then I'll just get lubricant all inside. These were already detached from the manufacturer. So they're not actually attached to the rail, which is weird, but first time I've seen that happen, but it is what it is. So, and these don't have any oil or anything on them to prevent them from rusting, so we don't need to brake clean them. So we're basically just going to get as much grease as we possibly can into the linear rail here. We do not want these to run dry. And these do not come with grease from the factory ever, so try to get as much super lube into these as we possibly can. Make sure all the ball bearings are coated. We may have to slide these on and off multiple times, we will see. You got to be very careful with putting these on because the bearings can fall out, which some of mine did. These are usually pretty loose inside the carriage. There we go. No bearings came out. Oh, one did, of course. Can be a bit tedious to do it this way, but there we go. My rails came like this, so hey, welcome, welcome. So we'll work that grease in. The rails do run very, very smooth, so I'm happy with that. They're not super low quality, which is nice. Try to get all the grease off the end of this thing. Yeah, that's what I should do for the next one, is actually use the plastic carriage and transfer it all as one. Then I don't have to worry about the ball bearings coming out. So I will try to remember to do that for the next one. So yeah, I'm very happy with how that runs. So that one is lubricated. So now we just got to do this one here. Yeah, they already have the plastic holders on them, so I definitely should use that to my advantage. Although I do need to lubricate these rails, so I'll try to install the plastic first and then slide it all on. For the lightweight X, basically one big thing that I'm doing is, of course, I'm using Bowden. I'm going to use Boombox extruder, which is on printables. And that's made by James Prey. It's probably the fastest Bowden extruder that you can get. It's definitely worth it. I've used it on my Delta Flyer. It works really, really well. And I'm going to be using it on this printer to get rid of all that weight on the tool head, or on the X, I should say. As well as I'm going to be using a Voron X beam, a carbon fiber X tube on X. So all the 2020 weight is going to be gone. And the X carriage is going to be incredibly light. No extruder on the carriage and no X 2020 on the X. So it definitely should be an incredibly light X on this printer. However, I am going to have to modify the parts for the X to work. Not too much. We just started, so you're in perfect timing. There we go. Got that plastic on first, which should help me keep the balls in. There we go. Yeah, lubing the rails up. This one definitely is a lot less resistance on that one. This one has a very nice feel to it. This Y rail is much lighter in the movement, so I'm going to actually take this off and I'm going to do another round of lubricant on it. because I don't think we got much lube inside of the actual carriage itself. But again, these are really cheap Chinese rails, so I actually do need to add some better rails, or put some rails from West 3D on the bill of materials. So I'm gonna have to send Chaz a message so I can be able to edit the bill of materials and add some Berserker rails and things like that from West 3D. I also do have a West 3D affiliate link as well, so if you're in the United States, Berserker rails and stuff like that would obviously be much, much better than these random China rails. Yeah, you can't really feel the ball bearings much on that one. On this one, you can feel that it's really nice. This one runs smoothly. It's just, it feels like there's no ball bearings whatsoever. There's no play. So we'll have to call that one good. Let me just try to get all the grease all off of this stuff now. Kind of get that as cleaned up as best I can, and we should be ready to install these. Yeah, I think running them for a little while they'll be all right. Most importantly, there's no play in the carriage, so. All right, so from last stream, I actually forgot to install the back 2020. So I've added that for my YouTube video. But we are going to be installing the Y rails on here. Yeah, my mic should still be on. I can see it on my OBS. I can see the levels changing. Anyone else having audio issues? Test 1, 2, 3. Definitely showing up good on OBS. My mic seems to be perfectly fine. Someone else let me know if my audio is all right. Okay, thanks, Ross. Pixel, your setup might be something messed up on your setup maybe, so yeah, OBS, I can see my mic just fine. All right, so actually what I'm going to do is, so I ordered some twist-in M3 nuts here. So we're going to be depending on how big a bed you want. If you increase by 50 millimeters, you'd get a 270 millimeter bed, right? Because this is a 2020 build area printer. And you will have to extend the panels if you do so. Right now, these extrusions here are 350. Thanks, Ron. How many nuts am I going to put in here? I want to say I'm probably going to put in, let's do 6, I guess. So now we got to line up the rail with our, and I want to make sure I have a nut on the very end of each of these. So let's put these carriage stoppers inward a bit more. That way I can put in, try to just even out the spacing as much as I can for the actual nuts. And that looks good. That looks good. Yeah, I think we should be good there. So let's pop in some M3 bolts. Yeah, sometimes computers are like to do their own thing, unfortunately. So we're gonna just get these installed first, and then we'll use our centering tool to actually center the nuts properly. So the Y extrusions are always going to be MGN 9. MGN 12 will stick outside the frame if you try to use them. So you must use MGN 9 for your Y rails. Hey, welcome, welcome. Monolith gantry compares to SimpleCore Redux. I don't have any experience with the monolith gantry. I heard it's pretty good, but no experience on that one. Okay, so I need to, I don't know why these rails do not want to sit flush. It is very possible my extrusion is not very level. Wondering I might put corner brackets inside here to actually make sure that these are level. Get my square. Yeah, this is like crazy not squared up. This side is fine though. I hear stuff and your build area organized. I have 3 tables on my computer desk are all filled with stuff. Yeah, I try to just print out parts as I need them. I don't print everything out and then spread everything out on a table. I like to just put only the things that I'm using on the table and then actually go from there. No, I would use blind joints for sure, Jonathan. You can add corner brackets later. Blind joints are the best way to actually do this, but Yeah, my one extrusion here is really slanted. So I need to fix that because I don't think it's the I don't believe it's the linear rail that's actually the issue. So what I might do is I'm going to, I could still lock the linear rail down to the actual extrusion itself for now. And then we will square that up a bit better. Let's get this tight first. Make sure all these are nice and tight. And then we'll take a look at the extrusion. When we put the X on next stream, we'll make sure that, of course, it runs nice and smooth. I mean, I really don't like large 3D printers, so I wouldn't go any bigger than 300. Core XY is not great at going large. The belts get too long. You want to look at cross gantry for a large 3D printer, in my opinion. Core XY is not a great printer to actually have very large. The belts just get too long. So I need to slide these in. So we're going to flip this upside down so I can actually make this better, because we're definitely having issues with the alignment. So I should get my alignment tool as well. But I've already got the linear rail attached, but I guess that should be okay. I can still slide it in on the side here to make sure that the height is right. So I'm going to use my square, and I'm actually going to press it against this and see if we cannot get it more accurate. Yeah, I'm going to enclose this eventually. I mean, you can get as high chamber temperatures as Voron or anything. You're most likely going to want a chamber heater, though, for a printer this size if you're going to print crazy amounts of ABS. But yeah, I mean, chamber temp is always going to be subjective to how much heating you're putting into the actual chamber itself, right? With just the bed heating, you're probably going to hit that 40 degrees, typical of like the Bamboo X1 and that type of thing. You really need a chamber heater if you're actually going to get serious about doing temps. Okay, so we can slide this around, but I want to try to get this nice and parallel this time. That's nice and level. So let's take a better look at this and see if this is looking better. No, that still looks really screwy. Okay, I'm going to be taking this off because that's not working out. This wants to twist on me for some reason, and it's not cooperating. And I'm not too sure if it's the linear rail that's not sitting level, or it's the extrusion that's not sitting level. Let's take these out of here. Let's just double check this. You gotta really take your time with the frame to make sure that this thing is parallel. Yeah, thick panels will definitely help. MDF would be the best. MDF is much like heavier weight than acrylic, and it'll help insulate much better. So MDF panels would be a really good recommendation. Hey Chaz, welcome, welcome. All right, let's see what's going on here with this. Yeah, this extrusion is way out of whack for some reason. So let's flip this around. And let's just check this. Yeah. Well, this is the one that's really screwy. Yeah. So I want to loosen these ones here. They're what's causing this, I think. So you can see here, this can swing back and forth, and unfortunately it's tightening where it's not parallel with the frame. And that's definitely not what we want. So we need to definitely make sure that, one, this is at the correct height. And we also need to make sure that this thing is absolutely straight. And you still will have this issue with blind joints, but definitely something that you want to keep in mind. And that's not, we need to bring that down. Okay, let's take a look at how this is. So that's definitely more parallel. Yep, all the extrusions are the same. So let's try to keep this nice and flat so that we can prevent it from twisting. I probably should be clamping it to some extent. Okay, let's see what it looks like now as far as it being squared up. No, it's still not. Unless this extrusion is twisted, which it's very possible that is the case. I mean, it's definitely better than what it was. I don't know why this... Yeah, it's definitely not... I mean, actually, none of these are really that level, to be honest with you. That's where like corner plates would be really nice, like the flat corner plates, which I could potentially use instead on the fronts. And maybe that would actually be better. I don't believe that's going to intrude on anything. I'm going to go get some plates here, just 1 second. Or actually, I think I have them in my printer stash. I don't think I got any corners, although these might work. So something like this is going to make the extrusions much straighter. I just don't want to use these ones because they will take away here. But yeah, I can see that these brackets here are screwing things up for us. So let me try and find the actual L brackets, not these T brackets. I'm going to steal some from my printer graveyard. Just give me 2 seconds. Okay. I'm back. Hey, welcome. All right. We have corner plates. So we are going to be using these L brackets here, which are much better. We can pop them in here. I'll try to increase you can actually see what's going on here. So they're going to be going up here, and these will help make sure that the extrusions are straight. So we are going to get rid of these, the front ones. We obviously can't use them on the back, but we will use them on the front to make sure that the front is nice and straight. The frame of the printer takes the most time, so we want to absolutely take our time here and make sure that this is as good as it can be. So what we're going to do is I'm going to loosen the top just a little bit so we can actually turn it, we can twist it, and then what we'll do is we'll flip it back up the correct way here. And then we are going to use the actual tool to make sure that the height is correct. And we're going to pre-install all of our nuts here and our M5 and our T-nuts, and then that way this will be nice and flat surface for this to actually be square or not twisted. Because if these extrusions are not level, they will cause binding with the carriage, and then you're going to have crappy prints. So take our time here and just get this as good as we possibly can. These L corner brackets are actually very inexpensive. I'd recommend buying on AliExpress if you can, but they are on Amazon as well. That one's tight, so we need to, that should be okay. So we're going to just put that in here like so. And then we're going to tighten it down. Get these started, and then I'm gonna loosen them ever so slightly so that we can make sure we're pressing up as much as we can on this. And we're gonna really lock these down. So this should help ensure that our 2020 is nice and level, I guess is the best way we're gonna put that. Make sure that these are tight, and then having the corner bracket on the inside here, it shouldn't affect anything with the printer as far as like build area or anything like that, but it should help make sure this is nice and yeah, so that's already better. My bracket, I think, is sticking up just ever so slightly there. But yeah, that is much improved. So Again, we're just going to make sure that these are really, really good and tight. And then we'll come back to the back, because our back is still technically loose as far as up and down movement is concerned. So we're going to just make sure that we get that nice and flat. Lock that in there. Okay. So that should fix that side. Which, yeah, is definitely much better. This doesn't sit that well on the extrusion, but I mean, you can just eyeball that and it looks way better than what this does. So let's do the other side now and get it properly nice and square. So we're going to completely remove this. Completely remove this. All right, so that's loose. We're gonna just loosen this so that this can twist, so that we can get our heights and everything correct, and make sure that this is nice and flat in all directions. And where is my M5? I guess I can use the ones that are on the table. Okay, we'll get this. Get all T-nuts lined up here. Make sure that it's nice and flush. So this is a nice flat aluminum plate, so it's going to ensure that the 2020 is not twisted. I used to have a piece of granite on here, but it broke. Okay. I know the back piece is not tight, but oh yeah, it does need to be the other way up. Well, we will fix that. So what happens when you're constantly swapping the frame all over the place? You get confused. Trying to wiggle this plate off. Flip that correctly. But I'm going to flip that back around so I can actually do it nicer this way. Because then the weight of the extrusion is on our tool. Yeah, mistakes happen for sure. Easy one to fix. All right, that will probably work better. Running a boat on ground is not great. Hopefully that you're okay. Okay, now. Okay, well, our bracket here is interfering with our... Yeah, it is definitely better for sure. Yeah, that's much better. So now we will flip that this way. Okay, that's good. Let's put our bracket in here. All right. Double check, make sure that this is good and tight. Make sure this is good and tight. Let's flip this back around and see. All right. I think it's perfect. The top of the extrusion is not very flat, so we'll see how that looks now with the linear rail on it. See if it actually ends up being more gooder. Hopefully that's going to so let's put that in there. snug that up as much as we can. It's very possible that this 2020 extrusion is twisted as well. We'll really see when we bolt the carriages on. Yes, simplicity always for me comes before build area. I don't like large 3D printers. Personally, I don't like really big ones. My X1 Carbon is like the biggest printer I have, and it's plenty large. I've just never been a fan of large 3D printers. And again, like large 3D printers that are Core XY are not really that good. But the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, is always one of the first principles I like using when designing a 3D printer. The simpler you can design something, generally the better it's going to perform. Overcomplicating a 3D printer just usually ends up getting rid of all the print quality, because you're adding like so many different parts that could be of different qualities and things like that, and that just winds up biting you in the end. Yeah, that looks much better. I don't believe it's like perfect, but it will be okay, I think. Yeah, it could be a hair better, but it's close enough for me. Yes, my original Phoenix Delta was massive, 1,000 millimeters tall. Cross gantry is much better at large format. Same thing with Cartesian. There's nothing wrong with Cartesian 3D printers. I actually have some things coming out eventually, I can't say, but Core XY is honestly, you don't need a Core XY 3D printer. There's a lot of hype around them still, and a lot of people, like, I don't know, it's still like this big thing that everyone wants. It's like, oh, Core XY, Core XY, Core XY. Cross gantry, while yes, you need more linear rails for cross gantry, it's much better at getting larger. I mean, a machine shop, yeah, could definitely do that, but yeah, I think there are like cheaper Core X or cross gantry printers other than the K3. The K3, as far as I know, is a really awesome printer, but it's quite expensive, right? I think it's like $2,500 or something like that for me to build it Canadian and in Canadian pesos, as we like to say, because our money basically is not, doesn't have a lot of value to it. For sure, but if you actually take direct drive off of the X rail, you can put a motor there instead to run X. And I think that's a better trade-off in my opinion. Bowden is completely fine for, I think, most scenarios. Again, direct drive, if you imagine direct drive putting a motor up high on top of the X and then swinging that around versus like putting a pancake motor down near the bottom of the X to run the X motion back and forth is much better in my opinion. I'd much rather take away the direct drive extruder and all that weight and just add a small pancake motor to the X to run it back and forth. Again, that's just my thoughts. I don't know. I'm kind of just over Core XY, to be honest with you. Not to say that there's anything crazy wrong with it. I think it's just like, I'd like to see companies make more motion systems other than Core XY. I think, honestly, I think belts and Core XY are using belts for 3D printers. I'd like to see more companies come out with cheaper lead screw, or not lead screws, but ball screws. Completely get rid of belts. I think would be really nice, but again, you need high manufacturing tolerances to actually make that work. But I will be trying it on my ball screw printer, which hopefully will come out this year as well. Because yeah, I don't want to just talk about these things, I want to try them, right? So trust me, I've got lots of ideas going on. Yeah, rack and pinion would be also better as well. But yeah, Core XY got really popular because it's like, oh, you no longer have to have X, but Cartesian doesn't move the motor on X anyways. You know what I mean? Like Cartesian doesn't have that problem either. There's no motor being moved around on a Cartesian printer. The disadvantage of a Cartesian printer is the bed moves. On like an Ender 3, that's where that disadvantage is. Is this actually threading into this? Cheap Amazon nuts is what that is. Yeah, ball screws for X and Y. I already have all the parts for my design, so that will be something that you'll be seeing in the future. We'll see if it works out. The ball screws that I have are quite decent. There's no backlash or anything like that, but yes, Cartesian printers are coming back. You know, there's the LH Stinger, which is a really great 3D printer. So I have some designs that I have in my head that I'm starting to work on. Didn't really make that very even, did I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where's number 6? Oh, there it is. Yeah, hybrid Core XY, I'd be interested. I know there's a company definitely making one of those. No, Bowden doesn't necessarily create more stringing. It really depends on a lot of factors. Your filament, your settings for sure. Bowden has inherently not been that great to print TPU, but honestly, I really don't think there's that many people out there printing TPU. And there are still Bowden printers that print TPU just fine. Yeah, for sure. But again, everyone's on this hype train of speed. I would take print quality over speed anytime. And you can still get quite decent speeds out of ball screws. Ball screws are much quicker than lead screw. So like a ball screw printer, I think would still be able to print quite quick. And yeah, I again, I want to see that stuff in person. Like I want to build my ball screw printer and see actually how fast can it print. You know, what are all these limitations? Are they actually what we think they are? And I know Pantheon obviously exists, but it's a $10,000 printer. But they're using ball screws, obviously high-end ones. Okay. And then I think this one's, yeah, this rail is tilted inward. And I don't believe it's the, I think these extrusions are just junk, to be honest with you. Like that's way off for actual, I don't think these extrusions are actually, or not the extrusions, the linear rails are sitting flat on top of these extrusions. I think these extrusions are very cheap. And yeah, I can prove that with my calipers to see. They're not actually tightening down level is the issue. And if I measure the gap of the carriage on one side, which is 1.4, and the gap on this side, which is 2.2. Yeah, these are Amazon extrusions, of course. And they're not, the linear rails are not sitting flat on them. So I got to try and fix that. AliExpress extrusions are definitely much better. Buy some reputable ones, of course. But you get what you pay for on Amazon. These are just like the bottom of the barrel junk T-slot extrusions, and clearly they're not sitting flat. I've printed on both on the exact same printer with the exact same filament, Benjamin, and there was no difference in quality. But yeah, you can put Trident Z on this printer pretty easily. It should, you'll have to put a beam in the middle, but okay, this is just not sitting flat is the issue here. I can definitely take these stops out. So I need to try to get these to actually sit correctly. Still not. Yeah, no, linear rods, I'm kind of over them forever. They're not worth it. They just cause more issues than they are worth. Linear rails are truly the way to go. That's one reason why I made a Delta Fly refit, because I was over the binding issues and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, these are not sitting proper at all. On the extrusion is a big issue. You have to babysit these a lot to get these to actually sit flat. Is the real problem. Yeah, they just are just twisting. I think these T-slots have too big of a groove in the middle, and they're actually causing problems. They're almost like V-slots in that sense. But I think I got it. It's still not great, but I think it's good enough. It definitely looks better. I should order some Asumi 2020 extrusions for the Y, truthfully, but that would take a while for this to come out, and honestly, it's not really going to be that big of a deal. They might be fine, Geb. I actually have not had much problems with Amazon extrusions, to be honest with you. Just these ones have really been an issue for me. In Canada, we have a company like Fabtronics or something like that it's called. And I usually can get extrusions cut by them. And they're pretty decent quality. So I probably will go with them next time. It's not as convenient as Amazon, of course, but obviously it's going to be much better as far as quality. So I think this is okay. I think I got this pretty flat. We'll see when I get the X carriage on here. I mean, this took an hour just to get this halfway decent. And yeah, it's still leaning onto the inside. Same thing with this one, I think. I can take these off now. Yeah, this is not bad. I think that's acceptable. So we'll see how this works when I actually bolt the X. Like I say, I'm going to actually use a Voron carbon X-beam on this. So it's going to be very lightweight. And then I'm going to use the Boombox Bowden extruder, which is really, really fast, great for pressure advance and tuning and printing really quickly. So not that I'm building this printer to build a crazy speed demon. I'd like it to come close to or match my Bamboo X1 as far as speeds. Okay. Wow. We can install these feet now. So let's make a huge mess first. And let's bolt these feet on so that we get a little bit of color on this frame. HBOT is fine. The only thing people don't like it is HBOT is it doesn't, it can't make sure the gantry doesn't skew. However, if you're using linear rails, that's not that big of a deal. Linear rails will generally keep the X skewed pretty well. HBOTs are not as fast as Core XY because of that reason. So I'll just let you know that. MakerBot is HBOT. And those print incredibly, incredibly well. I need my other M5s. But I wouldn't print crazy fast with one, but HBOT is perfectly fine. I'm just using the Voron X-Beam Mellow, a Mellow Voron X-Beam from AliExpress. It should be here next week. Because a 350mm 2020 extrusion is not that light, all things considered, so I'm just trying to take as much weight as possible off the X carriage. And the reason for that is because how EVA actually runs, the tool head is out front of the X carriage on EVA. Like it hangs over the front quite a bit, but the linear rail is on the top. So you have a lot of leverage over the front. I want to get rid of as much weight as possible. I'm trying to, keep the weight down so that there isn't that looks like this works perfect. So we will bolt on these nice blue ABS parts. Make sure it's nice and flush. Welcome back. Can I use your open build to be Slack entry with your design? Yeah. Redux does use the EVA toolhead, but I am using a custom mount to run the AT4 toolhead. So I'm going to use the EVA 3 carriage with the belt tensioning in the back, but I am using AT4 toolhead on this printer. Again, I want the best cooling possible, which generally is the AT4 toolhead, but I'm just converting it to Bowden, and I'm going to just adapt it to the EVA carriage is all. There we go. So let's flip this around. But by default, Redux uses EVA 3 ecosystem, which is perfectly fine. I just want to use the AT4 toolhead. So I have been modifying some parts for that. I will put the parts I design or remix on printables, of course, as a mod. So if anyone wants to use the AT4 toolhead on their Redux, they can. But I'm essentially just remixing parts that are already out there. Take these down. That would be pretty cool, Chaz. I know the A1 toolhead is like very easy to get in and out and swap and stuff like that, so that's nice. Okay, so let me go get my other feet parts. They should be done on my X1. Okay. Yeah, you usually put some music on and just kind of zen out and build some printers. And again, especially like simplified ones like this where there's not a whole lot of parts and a lot of crazy stuff that you need to keep an eye out for. It is very enjoyable. And very satisfying when you start to see it come together. I mean, there's going to be quite a bit of progress, I think, next stream when we start getting the X all bolted up, getting the hot end on, getting the fans all on and stuff like that. Like, there really isn't much to SimpleCore. It doesn't take long to get it, like, ready to print. So and now that we're moving on to attaching parts to the frame, things go much faster usually. And I'm building this, trying to build this as absolutely cheap as possible with as many scraps as I can. Yeah, there's not much else that we have to accomplish today. I wanted to get the Y rails lubricated and installed, and I wanted to get these feet on. I still need to do a bit of work on my mods for the tool head, and I don't have the Voron X-beam yet. I'm hoping that's going to be here this week, so that I can start making sure everything fits properly and goes together how it should. So I won't make a YouTube video on this stream just because there wasn't a massive amount that we accomplished. Probably after next stream I will, because I will be able to show off the tool head and stuff like that, I hope. All right, we have our feet on, got some nice blue ABS feet. I'm gonna put some rubber pads on them, just some cheapo rubber pads, like something like this. I want kind of a nice sleek low profile look to it. But yeah, there we have it. We're getting some nice blue into the mix. Blue and silver gray is going to be the look for this. We've got our Y rails on. They are pretty good now. I of course do have the carriages printed out. I also am going to be using a 3D printed 80 tooth pulleys for the gear drive. I have the 60 millimeter pins for these. I've got the bearings for these. Honestly, it's like 2 printed parts and some bearings and shafts to get gear reduction. And I actually have already some 188 belts and 200 belts. So I'll have to tension them a little bit different, but they'll work perfectly fine. And then, yeah, I do have the carriages, of course, for these. And I have the pins for them too, the M5 pins. So essentially this is gonna go here. Now, I say that, but I'm gonna actually have to modify these for the Voron X-beam. But I will just mount this carriage here just so you can see how it will look. The carriages are very simple, which is a big deal with SimpleCore. So there's not much to the carriage. The top and the bottom, they're small, they're easy to print, and they're easy to install. I can actually get it through this one. There's a bit of stringing in this hole here, but should be okay. So basically 2 halves, and then Chaz updated these for pins instead of M5 bolts. An M5 bolt will still work, you just need to put a lock nut on the bottom. and you're good to go. So yeah, but I have to do a little modification to these because the Voron X, I'm gonna have to basically turn it up. So I'm gonna have to bolt the bolts in the side, the back side, because the linear rail goes on the top. I am also using a modified EVA 3 linear rail mount. This is for MGN 9, not 12. By default, the EVA 3 uses MGN 12. Again, I want to get rid of as much weight as possible. Because I'm not using a direct drive extruder and I'm not using a 2020, I don't need a MGN 12. So these, I'm going to use MGN 9. That's going to sit up top here as my actual mount for my linear rail on X, which is an MGN 9. No, the Rook MK2Z, I believe it uses the same tooth pulleys, so it should be similar. Yeah, Benjamin, if you're wanting to do a tool changer, you want to wait for my Pegasus flying gantry printer to come out, because then you can do tool changing. You can just use Stealth Changer. There's already someone who's basically modded Stealth Changer to work on it, and I don't even think there's that crazy of a mod, because flying gantry is much better for doing tool changing. So I would recommend tool changing on a flying gantry printer like Pegasus or the Voron 2.4 if you want a tool changer, which I do want to build eventually. I do have to do videos on Pegasus. I don't know if I'm going to get to it this year. I have a lot of other things that I need to design and build and all that stuff. So, and unfortunately, there's just not much time when you have work and family and all that kind of stuff. But that's okay. So yeah, very simple carriages on SimpleCore. We're going to have the Voron X here, which I believe is 330 millimeters, so it's a little bit smaller than 350. So I'm just going to have the back or the front actually mount the X. Hopefully I can get one or maybe two. We'll have to figure that out. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the progress. I had to fight with these extrusions, unfortunately, for about an hour, which took away from a bit of the stream. But I at least now have the frame on the feet so that I can start thinking about cutting my bottom panel out of a black acrylic so that I can start mounting my Meanwhile power supply and all that kind of stuff on below. I'm just going to do that because I'm lazy and I don't want to make mounts for the back panel. Normally I would run the main board on the back of the printer just for easier access, and then the cord can go right out the back and into it. But we'll try and just mount everything in the bottom like it is on the CAD that Chaz has done. So I will put all the holes in the bottom plate for the parts, and then I'm going to cut that out once the Geared Z is built. I probably can start building the Geared Z next, honestly, because now we can attach it to the rails. We can have our two rails up the front, we can have our rear rail, and kind of get all that going. I have a SculptFun 600 by 600 millimeter laser that I reviewed a year or two ago. It's my workhorse. I use it to cut large panels like this because it's huge. 600 millimeters by 600 millimeters work area. It's a SculptFun S30 is what it's called. And it is perfect for cutting black acrylic. It's just, I kept it for that reason. So. But yeah, this is slowly starting to look like a printer. I will be adding corner joints to all the corners of this printer just to strengthen the frame up. These corner brackets here are not the greatest at like making sure the frame is really rigid. So I want to add as corner joints as many places as I possibly can. And then I do have the actual parts, which don't quite remember which way these go, but something similar to this. I think that's not quite right. I think it's actually maybe like this or something, but no, it's gonna be something like this, I think. Yeah, anyways, I do have the back pieces printed out and ready. I want to say they go something like this, but so I do have the corner mounts for the idlers, and as you can see, I do have the pins. These Amazon pins work really, really well. I've never had any issues with those. So I got those printed out. I got that all ready. I have tool head parts, like this is the modified EVA bottom. There's no fan duct on there, so one with the two small holes goes to the right side. Yeah. And I'm not using end stops. I'm just going to use sensorless homing, so but yeah, I got it for a review, right? I never purchased it. And unfortunately for lasers, if you're going to cut panels for a 3D printer, you need the largest laser possible. And I don't even have that. I don't even have that much space in my garage. Like it's way too big for my garage. So yeah, the smooth pins that I have, Chaz, fit really, really well. They could maybe be on these, they could be a hair tight, but I wouldn't even change the print. I'm just going to put a little tiny dollop of hot glue on the bottom, so just in case, but they're not falling out or anything like that. They're in there perfectly fine. I don't remember what brand these are, but I get them on Amazon in like a pack of different sizes, and they fit bearings perfectly fine, and they're really, really nice. So I would be a bit concerned because I'm using ABS. These have shrunk already, so 5.2 might be too tight. They're very tight on these. Like on the carriages, these are quite stiff. Like they're perfect on the carriage. And I of course have the pins for these as well. So I had those for other printers. But yeah, so the pin should work out pretty well. I've got all the F695 bearings. I had to order some 0.5 millimeter shims. I didn't have any of those. Those will be here tomorrow. I've got 1 millimeter washers, but I didn't have any 0.5 millimeter ones. Yeah, I think that it'll be perfectly fine as is. So, yeah. That's kind of it for the stream, guys. We did an hour and a half today fighting with these extrusions, and I'm sure I'm going to still have to tweak them a bit once we get the X installed, but that's not big of a deal. I do believe that the extrusions are flat. It's the linear rails that are not able to sit nicely on these cheapo extrusions. So, but I'm very happy to start getting some linear rails on here, and once we get the X and toolhead and stuff like that on, it's not going to be long before this thing starts printing. So, hey Thomas, just wrapping up the stream right now. We did an hour and a half. I don't really have many other parts to do. I think next stream what I'm going to do is I'm going to get as much, we can install the Z fully. Although I don't think I have linear rails for the Z. I got to order some linear rails for the Z, but that's okay. Thanks, Thomas. Appreciate that. Chaz, it's different for the Voron carbon fiber tube that I'm using. I'm not using a 2020, so I actually have to modify these for that to work. So I'm not using an X-axis extrusion. I have to modify it because the actual M5 bolts are going to go in from the back to hold it on, and then because I have to rotate it because the linear rail's got to be on the top. But anyways, that's the idea. So, but yeah, I will end the stream there, guys. And thanks so much for watching. I hope to be doing another stream next Saturday. Hopefully we can get the Z all installed with gear reduction, because I should have all the parts for that. And then maybe we'll also get the X on. I do need to do some modding though for the toolhead. I do have to modify the AT4 cowl to fit Bowden, and I am also modifying it for some other special features that I want. So we'll see from there. But I'll catch all of you on Discord, and thanks very much for joining. And next Saturday, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll make some good progress on that. So thanks, everyone.